You are not alone. Welcome to the Clark and Linda Show.
This is our real relationship, experiencing change after addiction and betrayal.
We're learning to connect to feel safe and confident in marriage.
And you can too.
'Cause I believe in you.
Welcome to the Clark and Linda Show. Again, thank you for being here. Today we're talking about getting your group on, not to be confused with getting an actual group on.
No discounts or coupons.
Yeah. So, I have like a couple quotes, and then we're gonna let Clark share, and then I'll share, and then we'll talk about our homework, and then we will kind of wrap it up. So brokenness, and this is something I found on the in the Ensign, and I think it was a sister sharing some stuff, but I liked what she said about this. She said that brokenness connects us to each other, and our brokenness brings us to Christ. It is by bringing our broken hearts to Him that we are made whole. Sharing our brokenness brings meaning to our experiences, and the connection we make with others when we share our stories brings healing. And I think that that's like a perfect intro to what we're talking about with groups and sharing our stories. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. That is a great quote. And that's kind of where I'm going to pick up, I guess, talking a little bit about that. So we were just, we always like to talk about the things that have helped us. And I think both of us give a lot of credit to the groups that we've been attending. And, it's funny, this is either a really bad week to do this or maybe a really good week to do this, because I don't think either of us have attended our group meetings for several weeks.
With Christmas.
I go on Tuesdays, and Christmas was on a Tuesday, and then New Year's was on a Tuesday. And then I was planning on going this week, and Bishop showed up at our house right as I was about to leave and needed help with a video project. And so I missed group again because I was helping our bishop, and I felt like that was a worthwhile reason. If you're going to be able to serve somebody, that's probably okay. And
then I missed my group because I was helping someone with a community service project, and so I was working, and it pushed my work back, and anyways, so
either we're hypocrites, or this is a great reminder for us that we need to go to our group meetings.
Or maybe we can count this as group, right?
Yeah, maybe.
You guys need to chime in with like stuff.
I really miss going to group. Any week I miss,
yes,
I just
true. I felt really
I kind of feel off, but yeah, it's been several weeks, and I can't wait to get back. So why has group been so helpful to us? Why was it such an integral part why is it such an integral part in our healing and recovery? I was just kind of thinking through why that is. And since I have 5 minutes to share, and I always go over, I came up with 5 reasons that I think group is really helpful. And so the first one is that it's a safe place to start sharing. And I think sharing what you're going through is really important because it's the opposite of what Satan tells us to do. He wants us to feel shame. He wants us to keep secrets, and that shame will lead to discouragement, and the discouragement will just lead you to self-worth issues, and those self-worth issues will lead you back to your addiction because you'll want to numb out and not feel bad about yourself. And so the best way to start to overcome some of that shame is to start sharing what you're going through. And, group is a great place to start doing that because it's a safe place, right? It's a place where there's confidentiality, and usually everybody there understands what you're going through because they're going through some sort of issue themselves. And so it's somewhere where you can just start and you know that people are going to understand. And even saying that, the first time you go to a group meeting, you're not going to feel safe. Like I remember my first time sitting down in group, and I felt so awkward. I was like, what am I doing here? What am I going to say?
Yeah, I remember I had to say something like, you can do this, to kind of give you a little bit of confidence going over there. Because it's hard.
It's hard to start, but it's so worth it. And, as I sat through that first meeting, I really started to identify with some of the people there. And it's one of those things, sometimes I think Satan will tell you any lie that he thinks can keep you down. And another one that he tells is you're worthless. You're the only person that struggles with something like this. Everybody else doesn't have problems with this, just you. And I'm not saying that you should justify anything that you're going through because other people are going through it. But sometimes it does help validate what you're going through, knowing that, hey, this is a common experience, and a lot of people go through this and get through it. And so it helps you know you're not crazy. I remember, which is Satan wants you to think that. He wants you to think like you're crazy, you're a bad person, you're terrible. I remember one of the first times I realized like I'm not the only one going through these type of things. I was in a meeting and I was sharing some feelings that I'd had. This is a thought that I had multiple times during my addiction. In the Bible, in Matthew chapter 5, there's some verses that talk about if any man look on a woman to lust after her, it's the same as if he'd committed adultery. And then the very next verse talks about if your eye offend thee, you should pluck it out. And I remember telling somebody, I said, I have considered like gouging my eyes out multiple times because of this. I'm so ashamed of what I'm doing. And the Bible says, if your eyes offend thee, and man, I sure feel like they've offended me. I've thought about like poking my own eyes out. And somebody at group...
Can't say that thought has not crossed my own mind.
Yeah. What is kind of a funny story though, because what happened is somebody at group said, oh yeah, well, if you read the next verse, it talks about if your right hand should offend thee, cut it off, lest any member of thy body, should perish. And he said, I don't know, something about cutting things off and members. He's like, I'm not going to lie. I've read those same scriptures. I thought about poking my eyes out. I also thought about just cutting my manhood off. And I just started laughing. I could not help it because I had the same thought several times, and I just thought that I was so crazy, right? And what was funny is I wasn't the only one laughing. I think almost everyone in group was like, oh man, I've had that same thought, and I thought I was the only one, right? There's so many times you think you're the only one. And so that was a funny story. We all kind of laughed about it, but we all realized Satan tells us all these same lies and these same stories, and wants to get you to do something crazy.
I found he's not
poke your eyes
original.
out. No.
He's not original. But this whole experience
he's cunning.
Teaching me this.
He's cunning and he's smart and he's experienced, but he's not original. Yeah. If it works on one person, he's just going to keep trying it and assume that it works on another one. So, seeing those people go through those similar struggles was a good part of it. So it was a safe place to start sharing. That was number one. I'm going way too slow. Number two, connection beats addiction. Right? It's a place where you can start to connect with other people and form bonds and friendships. And I feel like everybody in my group now, those are like my brothers, we're going through the same thing. We're fighting the same battles. They're my brothers in arms, and I feel really close to them. Just like I know a lot of soldiers that go into battle, they bond. They form a special bond, and truly we are in a battle together. And I feel like I have a special bond with the guys in my group. And, I love battling with them. So that's number two. There's a scripture that goes along with that in Moroni, chapter 6, verse 6. He's talking about the church, but he says they did meet together oft. Whoops, I copied the wrong verse. I didn't want verse 6. I wanted verse 5. Hold on. It's embarrassing. Sorry.
It's fine.
He says in verse 5, and the church did meet together oft, to fast and to pray and to speak one with another concerning the welfare of their souls. And I feel like that's what we do in group. We speak together concerning the welfare of our souls, right? We had a visitor one time to our group. who showed up, and afterwards, I think they were a little taken aback, and they said, "Man, I did not realize how spiritual these meetings are, and how much you guys quote scriptures to each other and talk about Christ." And I'm blown away how amazing this meeting is, and how much doctrine is taught, and how spiritual it is. And some of the most spiritual meetings I've been to have been group meetings, and so they can be strong, powerful experiences. Number 3, you go to learn. So many times I've learned like great strategies from other guys of what are they doing? How are they, overcoming their temptations and their addiction? And it's a great place to learn. The group meetings I go to are part of the Men of Moroni program, which we've mentioned so many times before. And we have a great facilitator. I think I've shouted him out here before, but Greg Dunford is amazing. He's an awesome counselor and a great group facilitator, and I learned so much from him and also all the guys in my group. So you will learn a ton in group. Everybody comes, they share strategies that are working for them. And in the Men of Moroni program, we also practice, right? Like we have some times where they call it sparring, and one person kind of plays the devil's advocate for real, and helps you think through, like, what are you going to do when these things happen? What are you going to do when things don't go right? What are you going to do when Satan says this to you? And it's actually super helpful because you have a chance to practice in a safe space. Like, how am I going to react to that? What am I going to say? And so that's one of the things I really, the church's addiction recovery program meetings are great and amazing, and I've felt the Spirit really strong there too. But I would say the Men of Moroni program has been way more helpful, and there's a lot of things I like about their meetings even more. The sparring is one of them. The practice for me, everybody's individual. I also
you got to try stuff out. You got to see what's good for you. And
the addiction recovery meetings had a kind of a no crosstalk rule that I always found really difficult. Right, like one person at a time shares, and you go around, and there's no like reaction to that sharing of like, oh, you should think of this or consider this. It's just like everybody takes a turn sharing, and then you're done.
Well, and that could have just been ours. That's the one we were going to.
And talking with other people, I think that's a pretty common rule, is no crosstalk. And it might be really helpful for some people to like not have people talk over them or interrupt them, and just be able to get out what they want to share.
But you like it when people talk over you, like I do all the time.
Exactly. Like I just didn't feel at home in those addiction recovery meetings because at home I barely get a word out edgewise. I love the practice that happens at the Men of Moroni. And then my final one is I think that you can go to group meeting to serve too. I love it when guys keep coming back to meetings. It's been super inspiring to me, and is super inspiring to see guys who have several years of recovery, and they still come to group and they share what's going on in their life and what they're doing. And a lot of them are serving in other ways. Some of them are facilitators of addiction recovery programs. Some of them have been asked to give firesides in their stake. And so I think especially as you start to, even if you're still struggling, I think it's still a service to the people in your group to go and share and help. But especially as you start to recover, keep going back, because people need to hear those stories of hope. And I gained a lot of hope from guys who had done well. And so, and as you can turn outward, that outward mindset helps your recovery. Service is another, connection beats addiction, and service overcomes selfishness. And so I just love group meetings and have felt like they have been a crucial part of my recovery. And I'm way over my time, so I'm going to let you go.
No, don't close it.
Oh, okay.
Because I was going to say basically all the same things that he said like totally happens in our group as well. But I did want to quote, so there's Maurice Harker, we talk about him, and he's the one who founded Life Changing Services. And so we find his his insight and the way that he's able to communicate things just so amazing. Like, I'm always like, yes! Like, I always want to give him a high five, but I'm never in front of him. So, it's like kind of hard to do that when you're virtually there. But anyway, so he he does these monthly Q&As with the Sisters of Worth, and that's the program that the sisters go to. And yeah, he covers a lot of information. We're able to chime in with questions. Anyway, so he has a couple quotes, and I wanted to share those. And it talks about like our story. So it says, if it's happened to you, it's your story. And this is kind of something he says to those who have the addiction. He says, when you misbehave, you relinquish your freedom from it being out in the world. And then he says that a person not in recovery will not recognize that your own story is separate from their own. And so for me, I think I just felt like it wasn't my story to share, and I wasn't feeling like I should share what was happening in my life, even though, and I think that's one of the whispers that the adversary gives us, like, you can't share that, what are people going to think about your husband, or what are people going to think about your family, or what are people, all these things. And
other sources besides the adversary might whisper that to you, like your husband, who's still super ashamed. I mean, I didn't want Linda to share with people that we knew for a while. I was okay with her sharing in a confidential group setting, but I was like, why do you want to tell our friends and people that we know? Like, they're just going to judge us. And that has not been the case. I mean, at least not that we've heard. There might be some people who think we're crazy, but
hey, to each their own.
We are a little bit.
Yeah, right. So that was my thing. I wanted to cover like the importance of the fact that it is the betrayed story to share, and that, we can benefit from all of the things that Clark was able to share about his group and in my group as well. Like, so first we shared with our family, and then we shared with our extended family. So first we shared with our boys, then we shared with our extended family. And then I think for a little bit that was okay. And then I started feeling like I wasn't being heard or something. I don't know. Like I was feeling really anxious. Like I couldn't be myself or something.
I was going to say, that's, you always felt like there was this secret, and you.
Yeah. And I was like, I need to be able to share, and I need to be able to be honest with people. And so I was telling him, I'm like, okay, I want to be able to share more. And he suggested I go to the group, and I was like, oh, I don't know about this group thing, and I'd never shared my story out loud with anyone. In fact, the only times that we shared with our family, he was doing all the talking, and I was like, that's what happened. And he was sensitive enough to be able to say that he has caused me to experience betrayal trauma and, things that come from like PTSD and those effects. But I never had voiced my own story from myself. And so the first time I did it was during our intake. And I guess when you first call in, they kind of ask you a little bit about yourself, and then they want you to tell them your story so that they kind of know where to put you, because they have different groups. They have groups for, the betrayed who needs to be divorced, the betrayed who is not wanting a divorce at the time, the betrayed who, so they have different, and then depending on how long you've been betrayed, I think they also take that into account, and how much healing you've been, doing. So they ask you so she was like, in 5 minutes, just share, what your story is. It took me 25 minutes. I saw the call, and I was so sad that it took me that long, but it was it felt like some deep wound that needed to get out, like this infection. And I just had to get it out. And the poor woman, I just was talking and talking forever like I am now. But it was just so hard to get it out that after I talked to her about it, I basically just collapsed and was crying for a while, because that had been like the most vulnerable that I had ever been. And and that I felt courageous after doing that as well. And so it felt freeing at the same time. So it was just like all kinds of emotions. So get ready for that if you haven't shared your story. Just know that there's going to be a lot of emotions. But at the end, it was really good to know that I wasn't alone in my story, that at least one person, even if that person I never talked to again, because I don't even remember her name, even if I never talked to that person again, one person was able to hear my story from my own mouth, my experience. Because, our ideas and our thoughts and our experiences, they matter. And although, we tell the Lord all of our problems, it's different when we share it with people. And so there's a quote from Brene Brown. We talk about her a lot here because I like everything that she says. But she says that vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weakness. And so I really like that, because that's exactly how I felt. I felt like you needed a lot of courage to say your story. And then in the end, you don't feel weak. I didn't feel weak afterwards. In fact, I felt, liberated, like I said. And then once she placed me in a group, I was able to share my story after another sister shared her story. And I think they just kind of do that with every new person so that they can kind of get I kind of could get an idea of like how I was supposed to share my story. And I hope that I didn't take as long. I can't remember exactly how long I took, but the second time sharing, which was the first time in a group setting, also was really hard. But I knew that I could do it because I had shared already once. And so, but it was also really validating, like you said, like to be able to share in a group that those sisters were able to validate my feelings and make me feel loved. And it just felt so good to know that I wasn't alone. Even though it hurts to know that there's other sisters and people suffering out there from that betrayal trauma, like it felt like I wish I would have been the only person to have ever had this, because it's not fun. But it was amazing to know that there were people out there, like you said, that have gone through it, that know what was expected after, and at different times, or knowing that certain experiences are going to be different for us because of the betrayal trauma. We have different triggers and different things that take place, and that we aren't crazy, because we feel all of these emotions, and we are not the only ones. And so it was just so amazing. And like Clark said, those sisters in that group that I shared are my amazing angel warrior sisters. I call them my warrior sisters because we fight together too. And we've even set up like a separate Marco Polo group for us and a text group for us. And it's awesome. And it's totally sacred space, but it's safe as well. And so you can, anytime something happens between us and I think I'm going crazy, I just get on and, ask the sisters some of their counsel or, prayers or anything like that. And it's just amazing how quickly we can be there for each other. And the same thing goes for all the other sisters, how they've been able to, contact us when they need support, when they need extra love, when they need help through a divorce, or when they need help because their husband made a bad choice, or just different things like that. It's just awesome to know that you have a group that will be there and that will understand what you're going through and that will empathize with you and just validate all your feelings, and to know that you're not alone is just awesome. So yeah, I'm probably going over my time as well, but that's all right. So Maurice also talked about how sometimes the the addicted might think that once they are able to share their story maybe with the bishop or something like that, and they confess, like, it should be kind of a quick thing that, you know, the wives or the betrayed spouse, you know, has to feel like they should be done feeling hurt or feeling pain. And Maurice talked about how the prophets have counseled for years about pornography and warned about pornography. And so there should be no surprise as to why it takes an individual a specific amount of time to heal from this kind of trauma. And anybody is going to take a different amount of time. It will take me a different amount of time than somebody else. And somebody else would have been betrayed in a different way than I was, you know. And so it's just everybody's going to be different. And we can't expect something that the Lord has been warning his prophets and apostles to warn us about since 1974, that we're going to easily be able to overcome this, because it's that serious. That's what, I mean, the Lord knew that if we are betrayed like this, we're going to feel pain, and they're going to know it. And they're going to experience it, and they're going to have to deal with that pain. And they're going to have to deal with the fact that we want to share our pain because we need that to heal, because that pus needs to get out. So I looked up pornography in the LDS app, and it says there are over 300 talks given during General Conference since 1977. So that's awesome. And then President Spencer W. Kimball in October 1974, he said, "May I bring to your attention another of the giant Goliaths that may challenge you and stand in your way. His name this time is pornography or filthiness." This was in 1974, before the internet was invented, before we were even alive. So if he's warning about it then, how serious is it now, you know? So I feel like everyone is going to have their own story to share. And like Maurice said, you know, we need to recognize that each person does have their own story to share, and not keep them from sharing because of your own shame. Because I know that there are instances where maybe the addicted wants to share and the betrayed doesn't want to share. Whereas for us, I wanted to share and he didn't want to share. So, but you know, each person has their own story, and it helps in their healing process to be able to share in a group setting, or even, you know, individually with family or friends or things like that. So I think that's all I wanted to say about sharing, and that it's amazing, and it's awesome to be able to connect with people that have gone through the same things, because you can get that strength as in numbers. You get that strength in numbers. So, and then it's great to see them also to see how my sisters turn to the Lord for everything. And so it's just strengthens my testimony to know that Christ is helping them. So of course Christ is going to want to help me too, you know? So anyways, so we're going to talk about homework.
Yeah. So I mean, the homework is practically
Pretty
in the title
obvious
of the
if you
episode,
know.
right? Get your group on. We probably should have come up with a better title. I feel like we're promoting Groupon every time we say that, but you know, you got to get your group on.
Yeah.
So that's the homework is find a group meeting that you can go to, or at least listen to one. You know, the addiction recovery site actually has recordings of several different group meetings, and if you need to just start out listening to get comfortable before you go to one, okay, but you need to go to one and experience it and share. And there's lots of places you can actually go to addictionrecovery.lds.org, and they have a little meeting finder where you can put in your zip code, and it'll give you places where meetings happen close to you.
Or if you don't want to go close to you, you know, you can, because I know that at the beginning we didn't even want to go to anywhere near where we were because we didn't want anybody to find out. We were so ashamed, So,
Or
put in the zip code where you want to go.
Or if there's nothing around you, one of the really cool things about the life-changing services is that they actually facilitate online meetings.
Yeah.
And they use Zoom, and they actually work really well. There's been a few times where like I was traveling or something was going on, and I really felt like I needed to go to a group meeting, and I couldn't go to my normal in-person group meeting. And so I've just jumped on an online meeting, and the guys are, it's like, oh, hey, there's somebody new. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just kind of crashing your meeting this week because I can't make it to mine. And they're always really helpful, and it's actually sometimes kind of cool to go to a different meeting. You get some new perspectives from people that you haven't ever seen before, and there's lots of other resources and places out there too. I know that on the Betrayed Addicted Expert podcast, they've mentioned some places you can find Facebook groups, and
I know there's
we're actually,
Bloom.com. I think it's either Bloom.com or Bloom for Women. Look it up. They have a bunch of different groups on there as well, like a community. I think they have like a 7-day trial or something you can get on there. And I don't know if it's anonymous or not, but yeah.
Fight the New Drug has some cool stuff with their app that you can look into.
That's cool.
There's lots of ways to reach out and connect with people, but find a group and then find someone safe that you can talk with. Your bishop's a great place to start, actually. But I think,
you might not have the resources that you want.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't view him as the end-all, be-all. It's an important step in your recovery if you're LDS. But find somebody else that can help and that can connect and that can support you. It's a really important part of recovery. And so we would just strongly encourage you. There's lots of resources out there. We've had really good luck with the life-changing services. I also really love the church's addiction recovery meetings. Have been to a lot of them and think that they're fantastic. And I'm sure there's other good places out there as well. So, spend some time. If you're not already going to group meetings, find something that works for you. Yep. And that's the homework. I don't know. Do we have other stuff to talk about after the homework this week? We usually discuss a little bit, but
yeah, I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
maybe. I mean, once you what's funny is we did share with our family, and since we're talking about groups and stuff,
yeah.
Our family doesn't really talk about it with us,
well,
so don't
not
expect.
All of them.
Yeah, I was
Some
gonna
of them.
say, don't expect your family to all of a sudden start talking about it at family get-togethers or whatever. I think maybe that's what I expected, and so, but I do get couple sister-in-laws will ask me how I'm doing, and specifically ask me for things that they can do that would help me, and I love that. But I think for some reason I thought that because we told them what was going on, that we were just gonna be able to openly talk about stuff, and I guess that's some kind of a misconception in my mind, but
But I think our family is really loving.
But they're very
and supportive.
yeah, super loving.
I've had several times a family member has sent me a text and said, "Hey, how's it going?"
Yeah.
Or on more than one occasion, somebody sent me a conference talk or an article or something saying hey, I thought of you while I was reading this. And at first I was thinking they'd just all be conference talks about don't watch pornography, but they're not. They'll send me other stuff
Good, at least other
that's
people are
related
sending
in
that.
some way, and I actually think that it's great. And I know almost everyone in our family that we've told has mentioned that they're praying for us. And while they may not know how to talk about it openly, because it is sometimes kind of awkward, that support and their prayers mean the world to me, and I gain a lot of strength from that, and I'm really grateful for our family. And it is, it's an awkward subject.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes
Well,
I'm actually
and they're
grateful
not-
they don't bring it up because,
they're not trained though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You won't get the same conversations and the same safe place to share like you would in group. So
And that's why I think group is
that's
so
why
important.
it's super important,
Yeah.
because I felt like when I shared with the family. I think I was wanting that group connection, but how are they going to connect with me that way when they didn't have that background, that experience, and the training? Because we have clinician-led group therapy meetings. So it's like, of course, I was seeking it from my family because I thought that maybe that's where it should come from. But how could it? They don't have 10 years of experience with whatever, and so. And then they haven't gone through what we're going through, so of course they're not going to be like, "Oh, I totally know what to tell you to help you." So do the group meeting, because if you're thinking, "Well, I already told my family and they didn't do anything," well, that's because they're not specialized in that. But in the group meetings, you will get the validation, the love, the that safe place to share, and the connection that you need from people that have gone through this. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to add to that.
Awesome. Great. So anyway, thanks for watching or listening. As always, if you have any feedback for us, thoughts, suggestions on what we can do better, feel free to leave us a review on iTunes, a comment in YouTube, comments on our Facebook or Instagram, or you can email me at clark@clarkandlinda.com.
Or linda@clarkandlinda.com, or just go to clarkandlinda.com and find us on socials.
We'd love to hear from any of you and tell us what we can do to make this show even better. So thanks for watching.